My name is Julian Mitchell. I am the social media director, and I also work in content at Revolt TV.
My name is Shaheem Reed. I got a show called The Roundup on Jay-Z's Life and Times. Co-executive producer new Busta Rhymes album, and doing some stuff with MMG. Y'all gonna see real soon.
My name is Jason Rodriguez. I'm a music journalist, former editor at XXL, former writer at MTV, and currently me and Shaheem launched a podcast called the BQE, and we have a couple other digital projects launching soon, so I'm an entrepreneur now.
My name is Terrell Thomas. I'm a senior editor at hiphopsince1987.com.
Brandon Peters, also a former editor at XXL, lifestyle journalist. I write for a whole bunch of sites and magazines now, and starting next week, myself, Maurice Garland, and Nadine Gray are launching Day One Radio.
I'm a little bit different than the folks on the panel. My name is Tiffany Harden, and I own a management company called Beal Creative Group. One of my talents is Karen Civil. She's a media personality. We've been doing a lot with her, but she also has her own blog, and we've been working on her brand as Karen Civil. So I'm not a writer.
I am not a writer myself. I am not a writer. My name is Ramon Dukes. Work closely alongside my good brother Shaheem and Jason. Currently the vice president of Revolt TV for the news and programming division. So first of all, we want to say thank you to everybody for coming out to the panel. We definitely appreciate it. It's an honor to share the stage with such great minds right now. You guys are clearly, fans of the media, and I'm sure you're very familiar with a lot of these gentlemen and young ladies' work in the industry. Me myself, I've been in the game for a minute, and I've seen the transition from when, we work in the television field, so we, I think a lot of us from back then, some of these guys have been in print media, but we've all tried to make the transition into digital, which has definitely been a challenge, and digital is clearly leading the way nowadays. So, we really wanted to have a discussion today about new media being the new way to go, and how successful this is for being a tool for artists, and seeing that we're somewhere such as A3C, where there's a lot of aspiring artists out here. We wanted to see what the impact has on these artists and how they can use this to their advantage. So I think the first person to kick it off to is.
Thank you, Ramon. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I think, new media is really like the new artist. I think when I look at it, first looking at it, there's a difference between like social and digital. I think that's a big thing to recognize too. A lot of people clump them together and they think, social and digital are synonymous. This is something Tiffany and I spoke about a lot. Social is all about conversation, right? Like you put out content, you create content, you produce things, and then you generate conversation. That's social media. That's why it's social media. It's conversation by design, right? Digital is really about the platform, the tool, the medium. Like the medium is the message, right? Like Marshall McLuhan, right? It's the medium you create to deliver that message or deliver that content that's going to create the conversation around it, right? So I think new media is the new artist, because what you have to do when you come out is be original, be authentic, introduce something fresh, grow organically, right? Like if you step out like those dudes, those artists who come out and then they got like 1 million YouTube views but can't get nobody to show up to their show, you're like, oh, they could have paid for that, they could have did a lot of things for that, but they didn't grow organically. You have to grow organically. You have to build credibility. Like cultural currency is key in the new media space. Like culture over a lot of things, like that value is immeasurable. So you have to build credibility. Then you have to win new fans. It's the same thing. Like you step out, you get engaged with people, you speak to people in the new media space, you engage influencers, curators, different people. When they shout you out or they have conversations with you, their fans are watching in the digital space, the people who follow them, who respect them. A lot of that's about like when you rock the stage, you open up for somebody, that's their fans. right? Like those are the people that rock with them. And a lot of that is getting those people to evangelize and rock with you because they believe in the lifestyle or the message that you translate online. So I think that's a big part of it. And I think the other thing too with new media is it's all about access. Like everybody has access now. There's no boundaries, there's no barriers, a lot like the music. And with that too, you have the ability to capture different regions too. Like the same way that artists go out and you can see somebody like an I Am Sue come to Atlanta and get so much love from the Bay, like a small town, you see Problem come out and get so much love. You see some of these newer artists go into these different markets and get a lot of love. It's because their media presence and the way that they present themselves and capture different people using the internet, using digital and using social is really a way that they can bridge those gaps and prove that their message and their music is translatable to any region or any possible place. So just to sum that up, I just think new media really, if you look at it as a metaphor, is the new artist. Like that's really a lot of what it is. It's blending the platforms with the conversations, with the content that you put out consistently and remaining true to your brand and getting out and getting people to rock with you and build that core fan base online. That's really going to power your career and move you forward.
I have a question.
Yep.
Hi. So you said artist is new media is a new artist.
Yep.
And so I know a lot of people in the room have. Can y'all hear me? I feel like this mic is like.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people in this room either have their own blog, they have their own sort of platform, or they're an artist looking to get on these platforms, or yeah, that's about it. Or you're just an influencer using these platforms, or a wannabe influencer, whatever it is that you're doing, using these platforms to evangelize yourself, right?
Right.
My question is, if we know the audience in here is, should this audience be looking at the platforms, be it Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever? Is the conversation about how these folks in here are working these spaces, or is it about how we need to just be better at using them for music? You know what I'm saying? Like, 'cause I feel like there are people. I rep Karen Civil, and so I look at her and I look at how she uses the platforms that she has, and the way that she's been able to do that has gotten her own brand, right? And so when I work, I'm working to help evangelize her brand, and work with different partnerships, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm wondering if new media is the new artist. Are we treating new media as an artist, or are we treating new media as just a tool? That's the question.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, it's a tool, right? I think it's a tool to build your brand. I'm saying like more of the approach to how you use it, like the approach to how you leverage the platforms is more taking the mindset of what a new artist would do. Because like when you come out and you're building your first blog, you're a new artist. You know what I'm saying? You're fresh in the market. You're trying to build a brand from the ground up. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's a tool, but approaching it with the same hunger and the same like strategy of a new artist.
I think that's an excellent point, but also I'm sure there's people that are at this conference that have been around for a while in a smaller scale and are trying to take it national. So they already have an established brand, but they may be new to Twitter, social media, and all that stuff. And a perfect example of that is last year I took over for when Momentum bought Verizon's How Sweet the Sound tour. I'm a hip hop dude. I grew up in church, but I don't know nothing about singing in choirs or nothing. But and it was like a completely different ball game because you have all these established artists that are huge in the gospel world, and then it's merging with people in social media. A lot of those artists aren't familiar with social media, so you run into new problems as an established artist. Even if you're just established on a local level or a national level, you have to completely and totally be aware of who you're talking to, whether you're new or established when it comes to social media, because we had issues with one of the young ladies from Mary said something that people didn't like, and they was calling her things that you would call folks on the street, and these are church people doing this. So it's always instances. You just really have to pay attention, whether you're new or established. It's kind of like a different game.
Well, Sha, let me ask you, Sha. What adjustments did you make coming from a print background? Making that transition to digital.
I had to find a good partner in crime named Ramon Dukes. Really, know, with me, anybody, well, first of all, before I do anything, I gotta acknowledge my brother, Combat Jack, that's in the audience. And this is Combat Jack, so, you know, he one of the top guys in there. I'm sure he's gonna be on a million panels. He need to be up here with us too. My man Steve Ray's. But, you know, with me, man, I always kind of fought the new wave of technology. I know that might be bad saying up here on this panel, but you know, I'm young, but I'm still old school, man. Like coming from print, like I still got the chills of going to a magazine stand and picking up a physical copy. I still buy CDs. I don't download CDs. I put them in the computer and import them. I'm still old school like that, but you know, coming over to MTV, we had to switch quick because you know they was on the forefront. Brothers like Ramon Dukes, who was there before me, and you know, as far as like from the journalist side, he just showed me ways of just incorporating what I did with print into the. I don't even call it new media because it gets old real quick. I call it evolving media because it's always changing. Every month there's something new. You know, who would have thought Instagram would be the hottest thing like a year and a half ago? But you know, we just learned that when you get on the internet, it's a way shorter attention span. Like we had to stop doing the 5,000 word features that we love to do as writers. That we love to challenge ourselves, and you know, when we sat down and did, I think we pioneered that at MTV. When you sit down with somebody and you do a hour and a half long interview, and you only put up like 2 minutes at a time. You know, get the call from the artist like, yo man, we did all that. I cried in the interview. I told you my mother's social security number, and you only put up 5 minutes. And you know, we just had to convince the artist and just kind of train them and the record label. Not to use the word train like they animals, but we just had to get them adjusted to we only could give out a little bit at a time. So I think we were some of the first people to pioneer like doing a week-long interview series and things like that. It's just there's different adjustments that you have to make for the shorter attention span. Like, you know, some of these people, when they be putting out their blogs, it's very few that I could say can get away with putting out like the 7-minute blogs and stuff like that. So I would definitely tell artists to kind of cut them down. And I would definitely tell artists like when they putting out their blogs to make kind of a story. Like, you know, I used to come down to Atlanta and, you know, a lot of my guys, artists / D-boys, they would be making their blogs and you would just see them in the club for 15 minutes popping 100 bottles of champagne. So I was like, you gotta put like some type of story around to it too, man. Like it just can't be just one thing. So, you know, since I'm talking about keeping the attention span short, I will shorten my spiel. But yeah, I think short is better, and it gives it more impact.
It's funny, to add on to that, I used to work with Ramon and Shah, and I think a big change, particularly for people who come from print background. I used to work at Vibe magazine before I came to MTV, and so the majority of our work was on MTV.com. And I think like there's two particular things that I remember from that transition. One, it wasn't the idea of thinking about a good story. Like as a print journalist, you're thinking about, oh, that's a good story. I could probably get these photos to go with it. I'll get this quote. I'll paint the story this way, and it's gonna rock, and it's gonna be a good piece of journalism. Where, you know, with digital, it's content. And so, you know, I remember me and Ramon went on this trip. We chased down Lil Wayne when he got released from prison. We followed him through 3 cities. We went to Las Vegas, New Orleans, and Miami. When we finally got Lil Wayne, I think we had like 45 seconds with him. And he gave us 3 answers. One of them was like a growl, it wasn't even a real answer. And I think we did five stories off of that. And out of that 5 stories, it probably had 9 pieces of content. We did a news hit. We did each piece of video for each answer. We did an extended, and by extended it was 45 seconds, an extended video of his answer. And so, you know, it's this idea of treating, you know, what makes a good story, what makes good pieces of content. And like what Shah was saying, like we would interview people, and you know, I would interview Drake, and I would cut it into like 16 different stories. There would be like 5 different news stories, a Q&A, a feature, a blog post, video, and the perception would be like, oh, you must have hung with him for like weeks at a time. It's like, nah, that was an hour, if that, you know. So I think that's one main transition. I think another one is too.
You gotta be nice though. You gotta be.
You get to be nice. Yeah, you have to be nice to do that. Yeah, it's strategy, but you have to be good with your pen too. But I think that too. And then Mixtape Monday. Mixtape Monday used to be this long vertical column where we used to identify rising artists. We used to have 3 or 4 different news pieces in it, video, and it was literally loaded with like 16 or 17 different things. It generated one clip. It was one page view or one unique when you get to it, and it wasn't until years later we evolved it and made it Mixtape Daily. We spread it out during the week, but we used to do all this work for one post, which was kind of insane. But I think the takeaway from that is just identifying like what the currency is, whether you're an artist or whether you're a new media person that's creating this, identifying like what your currency is. Is the video the best thing that we got here, or will this work better on Facebook than will on Twitter? Because in the same way that social and digital aren't the same thing, all these platforms aren't the same thing. You just can't get the same story. Spreading on Twitter isn't the same way as spreading on Facebook, and there's a different type of conversation that's taking place on Facebook. It's anchored with all the responses, whereas Twitter, if you don't catch it in that moment, it's kind of hard to go back and revisit that. And as a creator or an artist, if you're an artist and you have a good personality, maybe it's Twitter for you, or maybe you start a Tumblr, or maybe you start a blog, or if it's a visual thing that you do, well, obviously, the currencies in Instagram, and YouTube, and use all those to kind of create your own ecosystem and point to one platform to another. And, hopefully that's how you build a brand like how Tiff and Karen were able to do with Karen. You're good. So hip hop since 1987 is one of my favorite sites, based out of Philly. Brandon, things on there. I think you guys are interesting too, because you don't have to worry about the transition, right? Like that's your main priority.
Yeah, I didn't I don't have that experience like with these gentlemen as far as magazines are concerned. Like the only writing I did like that was for the school newspaper. So for as far as media with blogs are concerned, I think they made very valid points about having your content. Content is very key. And one thing that I think you also have to understand your viewer. Like you have to understand what your viewer like. They mentioned that a minute ago. Do the majority of your viewers actually take 2 to 3 minutes to read your blogs, or do the majority of your viewers take 30 seconds to watch whatever the video that you put up? Like I know something we strategize in is just like keeping exclusive content, but keeping it to a minimum. Like you won't see anything that's pretty much over 5 minutes, whether you're reading it or watching it on the site, because after about 2.5 minutes, the average viewer leaves. They click off, or they'll go to check something out. So it is like a waste of time, whether you're a media or you're an artist. And if you're an artist and you have a 15-minute blog, the average viewer is gonna watch 3 minutes of that, the first 3 minutes of that, which may just be an introduction and it's over and whatnot. So you got, you really got to understand your viewer. You got to understand who you're trying to target, and I think that helps out a lot.
Well, let me ask you guys. We talked about these different waves of transitioning. As far as in the media, at first you really had the web, the internet, and then pushing it even further. Now you have social media. So I basically want to ask you guys about using the power of your platform. An interesting story. I remember working alongside Shah, and one day we were sitting there, and we was talking about his Twitter account. He was telling me how, for maybe a good year, he was on private, and the second he turned it on the public, he probably got 1,000 followers within an hour, and he was amazed by it. And anybody who's heavy on social media knows that Shah is a very celebratory figure in that space. So I personally saw the rise from when he came as private figure to a more high-profile figure on social media. And it's definitely a very heavy tool. I know a very big part of what we do, at Revolt. We're getting this engine started, and one of the important tools that we've been using has been social media, engaging in conversations, thanks to this gentleman right here. But it's really about just really connecting with the audience, and it shows that it's a very impactful tool. So just kind of wanted to get you guys' take on how you use this, for your various platforms.
Can I start with this? Do you mind, Sean?
Ladies first.
Thank you. I wanted to speak on this a little bit because, just so you understand what I do with Karen, using Karen on social helps her with her blog. You know, if you post something, you should tweet about it, let people know. But she's been growing this audience. She just crossed over 200,000 followers on Twitter. And I wanted you guys to understand what that means. Cool, it's like, oh, what are your stats? 200,000 followers. What that really means is how many times she gets retweeted, how many times people mention her, et cetera, et cetera. Those are also, they're not exactly impressions, but they're somewhat like impressions. In the past year to date, she has 4.5 billion impressions. I know when people talk about her, how they talk about her, why they talk about her, when they talk about her, and I can associate that to dollar signs. So when you're thinking about maybe, not even just with your brand being on social, but maybe even your blog or your website or whatever, don't misunderstand. You should know what your audience is, but you should also know what you're bringing to the table and what you're doing. The fact of the matter is Kara was able to do some work with Sprite, CoverGirl, pick a brand, and it's because I was able to tell them why she's important, what she's giving, and why she can leverage her voice for something like this. There's value in that. So, Shaw, for instance, is an amazing person to follow, just because he's smart, intelligent, and he can write well, and he's fun, he's always in the cool places. But beyond that, being able to make your brand something and understand that you are a brand, whether it's your blog or you or whatever, being able to do that in a way and use the tools correctly so that when you are getting tweeted, when someone asks you a question, et cetera, there's a response there. There's a reason to be engaged in that. I know that you guys know that a lot of brands like, I don't know, Cheerios, Samsung, et cetera, regular brands, consumer good brands, they're on social platforms. And when there's complaints or when there's praises, et cetera, they will come at a brand and say, I hate your blah, 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 or I love your blah, blah, blah. And there's somebody on the other side that says, man, I'm really sorry that you had this thing or this experience. I'm gonna fix this for you, or whatever the case may be. That makes you feel like you're having a conversation with somebody. So I say all this to say, when you are dealing in these social platforms and there's a way for you to grow it, be able to grow that authentically, but understand that you should also understand how you're growing, and making sure that you understand the background of why you're doing it so that you can leverage what you're doing in other places to get maybe dollar signs.
You might have to close that door, yo.
We tried. They told us we cannot. They told us we cannot.
I'm a star. Well, with me, like Ramon was saying, I was kind of scared of Twitter before I really got heavy into it. I just, at the urging of people like Noriega, at the urging of people like Elliot Wilson, I kind of started doing it because it was just weird to me just telling the whole world what I'm thinking and what's on my mind. But we gotta filter it. We can't be like my man Guwap and go crazy on people sometimes. You know what I'm saying? But Twitter is good. Like it's definitely helped me immeasurably. Me and Rick Ross, we put out a mixtape called Rich Forever. It turned out to be one of the most downloaded mixtapes of all time. That was a lot through Twitter. Every time you downloaded the mixtape, you could actually send a message to Twitter that you downloaded the mixtape. So I would be waking up with like 1,000 mentions on my timeline, scared as hell, like did somebody die or what's going on, and it was just people downloading the tape. Actually been able to break music, like a couple of records from the Self-Made 3 albums. I broke on Twitter, track listings, and now with Instagram, it's kind of like the best of both worlds because now you can actually put like different pictures. You can see who's in the studio with who. Now they got the video. You can actually see some of the concerts and whatnot. Although I don't think it beats going there in person, but you could definitely get a feel of what's going on, and it's also a great way to talk to your audience and just see what they saying, see what they thinking. Like I'll ask certain questions every now and then on Twitter, like who's the king of R&B, who got the hottest album right now. Different things when we did hottest. I think like I caught like the tail end of when we was doing hottest MCs a few years ago. Like, you know, the feedback going crazy. Like, how is such and such over J. Cole, or how is somebody over Nas or something like that. So, you know, it's just a great way to just engage in people. It definitely will help you up your brand and get you some more bread. It's fun too. It's helpful to me. Like the other day I was on the road and I missed like the second to last episode of Breaking Bad. I was like, yo, somebody send me a link ASAP. I'm dying over here. So, you know, a lot of my good followers, they sent me a link. Also too, you gotta have a thick skin, because you know Twitter is unfiltered, so you will get people like when the Trayvon Martin case came down, I found out that I had like skinheads and people from the Aryan Nation following me. Like, they love hip hop, but they also love George Zimmerman. So it was just real crazy. I had to block a few people, but you know, it's interesting and it's changing too. Like, you gotta just be aware. You gotta stay on your toes, and you know, also have your inner filter too, because whatever you put on Twitter is there forever.
On a business level, if you guys are branding something, it's extremely important to invest your money in metrics. Radiant 6 and Social Radar are excellent tools for that, but also remember to pay attention on your own, because those tools, we haven't got to the point where those tools can measure sentiment, which is essentially if you have a bunch of mentions of a love in something, they're going to think it's a good tweet if you use one of those tools, but it could actually be they love your competitor, or they love to hate you, or something like that. We haven't got that advanced where they can measure that. So
unless you're using Crimson Hexagon. Unless you're using Crimson Hexagon, they can measure that.
So she put me up on game. Oh, okay. But that's definitely important. If you have the bread, invest in those tools. Because just having this many followers, like somebody said, you could have bought those followers. Or they could not be interacting with you. They could see you, but they don't respond, they don't retweet, and they don't buy your product. So,
yeah, I think one thing too is it's very simple, is you can never underestimate the value of a real conversation. Like, you can never ever do that. Like, you know, that and emotion, those are the two things. Like, the same with the music. Like, the emotion is really what connects with the people. So, you know, a way you're able, or a way we've been able to successfully build our audience online very quickly, is by saying, you know what, we're gonna be a platform that creates and owns conversations. Like, that's what we're gonna do, and do it with a strong point of view, one that we believe in, one that's gonna let people know about like our lifestyle, what we stand for and what we represent. And there's power in that, because you know, people are longing for truth and authenticity, and they wanna connect with people. It's like if you meet somebody on the street, say you meet somebody at A3C and they trying to sell you something, but you have no connection to them. You don't even know what they stand for, what they represent. They just handing you the CD. You like, yo, you know what I'm saying? Why would I follow you? You know, so it's the same type of thing. Like, you stop somebody and you connect on a common ground. Like, shared value is key, especially in the media space, right? It's like, what's that shared value? And that's really the power in your platform, like Terrell said earlier. Like, knowing your audience, right? And that even goes to the, you know, using like Radiant 6 or Marketing Cloud. Those tools are powerful for your platforms because they can show you who's really engaging, like show you what people are really drawn to your brand in real time, show you like the type of audience that your message really adds value to, because it's really about adding value. Because if you don't add value, you don't participate, then you're really just spectating on the culture, right? You're not really an impactful part of the culture. So I think it really comes down to simply like being willing and brave enough to have a real conversation with the people who follow you, you know, and putting out content that you're not afraid to have a real conversation around. I think a lot of times, a lot of these sites will put out content not like really quickly with a few sentences, not just because it's quick and it's you know, something they want to do, but they're not thinking like, how would we have a conversation around this, or like what really matters about this, or how does this piece of content really add value to the culture. They're like, yo, this is just news, let's just like put this out real quick, you know, because we want to be the first to do it. But if you're the first one putting out the same piece of content, you have no conversation, what value have you really added?
Because there's
to
no
what's
influence.
happening? There's no influence. Exactly.
You don't have any influence. Like the difference between, I mean, and I think a lot of people here, some of you, how many of you have your own blog, your own piece of content? Okay, so, so the thing is, I think maybe the question is, how do I make it hot? How do I make money off of this? How do I get advertisers? How do I get people to believe in it? And, I want to ask y'all, how did y'all get hot? Like, how was it that this is something to do? And now you're sitting on a panel at A3C sharing knowledge. You know what I mean? Like, because that's what it's about, influence.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think it's living the culture that you're speaking about. First and foremost, I think it's that, and like having a passion for that. Like having a passion for moving the culture forward. And I think if you really have a passion for moving culture forward, you can't just like be sitting back and be reactionary. You really got to be proactive. Like you got to be ahead of the trends. You got to keep yourself sharp. You got to like perfect your craft. That's not just a music term. That's a media term. That's a life term. Like you got to, for real, like you got to perfect your craft. And I think when you stay true to, when you live the culture and you're skilled at what you do, you're going to be progressive and you're going to win. Like as simple as that. And people are investing now. Tiffany, you definitely from the advertising world, you can speak to this. Like, nowadays people are investing in the people. It's not about employees. It's not about like what brands can I partner with. It's like, yo, who is hot because they genuinely represent the culture we want to connect with. And those are the people that are winning. And I think that's the way you get good, is that you value that and you take advantage of that and you keep it pushing.
Yeah, and to add to that, I think it's just interesting with social, like, the idea, I mean, there's peers that I have, whether it's artists or writers or DJs, who, in person, I'm very close with them, I consider them friends, who I just can't follow on Twitter, right? Like, I don't like their Twitter. And, yeah, like I do unfollow Fridays. Fridays I unfollow people. And, but then there's also, on the flip side, there's people who I don't know at all, I've never met before, and I enjoy their feed. I enjoy everything they talk about. They may not promote everything that they're doing. It may just be some insight into what they're doing or something that they're reading, but I think that's coming from a genuine place. And the reason I want to speak is I've worked for media companies that are the major ones, and I didn't want to do it anymore. Like I worked at XXL, and in December I decided to resign. And I said, I have this many Twitter followers, I can do this, I can be on this show, and it's not going to stop. And and part of that now, it's like, this whole year people ask me like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. I'm figuring it out. I'm building my own thing. But nothing has stopped for me. I still go to the same listenings. I still do the same things that I want to do because it's organically, it's my passion of what I want to do. And so this will be my quick plug here. So like tomorrow, we're doing our live podcast tomorrow, and I have no major company. There's no major backing, and we're going to do an interview with Ninth Wonder, Young Guru, Schoolboy Q, J-Rock, Terrence Martin, and that's all me picking up my phone and me doing it myself. And when people ask like, what are you doing? I tweet. I tweet, I'm participating in this culture, I join this conversation, and I think it's genuine and I think it's real. And most people who have blogs or sites, like, we have a bunch of media people, obviously Combat Jack, Steve Ray's with All Hip Hop, Maurice over here with MauriceGarland.com. None of them do the same exact thing, right? Like Reggie's thing is his podcast. Steve was a pioneer in the digital space. Maurice has been himself in terms of like building his own individual brand and presence. Because they're all not doing the same thing, they've created their own unique niche, and that's how they've been successful. Hip hop since 1978. It's younger than the stuff that we cover, plus it's based in Philly, so there's a huge Philly angle to it. Nobody doing that space, and I think whether it's your social, whether it's your platform, whether you're an artist, it's really identifying who's the truest you that you can be, and just continue to amplify that and participate in the culture and engage, and not make it one way. It's not, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing. When people at you, talk back to them. Reggie does this all the time. Like, it's a matter of like, it doesn't matter if somebody with 50,000 Twitter followers is tweeting me and we're in a debate. If you say something good, even if you say something I disagree about, I'm going to go at you just the same way I'm going to go to somebody else, because this is what it is and this is what we do. And, I think, again, it goes into like with Tiff, like that. If it's Tiff's job to generate money and look at the dollar sign, it's Karen's job to be who she is. And ultimately, like, you have to start being who you are. And if there's something with that and you get, a following, then, dollar signs or somebody's going to recognize that and it's going to be amplified.
Just to build on what Jason said, I think Twitter and Instagram is definitely dope for artists too. We got any artists in here? A few artists. Like, you know, I even started because I would just get so many artists tweeting me. I just started my own subdivision, Team Shaheen, that helped me filter through a lot of the music that I get. My man over there, Al. And, you know, just filter through a lot of the music that I get. And, you know, we've seen tremendous results. Like in the past year, we've seen, you know, some of the first people we featured was like 3D and the T and Asia Sparks and a few others we featured, and a lot of those people are now making noise. Like it's not an overnight thing, but you know, they've been on their Twitter and their Instagram game heavy, and like in a year, you know, we see them getting radio play. We saw Asia on the BET Cypher, and she has a deal coming up, and you know, it's definitely possible. So I would say for all artists, make sure your social media game is heavy too. I know a lot of people, they love the streets, you know. I'm that too. I like going to Jamaica Avenue and getting my mixtapes there, but you know, you definitely got to be on the Twitter and Instagram and other social media outlets.
You got a question?
Yes, I have a question. Good evening. I'm Gigi Smith, executive producer of Girls Talk Television. It's 7 of you very professional individuals up there with a ton of experience. I would love to ask each of you, what's the best piece of advice to give to a newcomer?
It depends on what you want to do. Like, it's newcomers in anything. Like, what is the newcomer trying to do?
We got bloggers in here. For instance, I'm a TV exec. Just what would you give me on the top of your head, the best piece of advice from the very beginning of your career to the end, the best thing you learned that you can tell me that I might be able to take advantage of and just, you know, be better at it?
I mean, it might seem cliche, but if you could create, to me, the first step is creating your own exclusive content. Like, I know we in an age where we share media, and you know, luckily people are starting to give a different contribution these days. But you know, I would say you got to be the most creative as you can. Like, if you want to do TV, radio, blogs, whatever, kind of create your own lane. You got to look at the landscape and see what's not out there. You know what I'm saying? You got to look at it from a fan's perspective and like, what am I missing? Like, what are they not feeding me that I need on an everyday basis? If, you know, if he got the steak, he got the best lobster, he got the best chicken, you better come with some oxtails or something. You know what I'm saying? Like that.
And you know, the other thing, just to piggyback off of Sha real quick, you know, I'm in the television. You know, we've all pretty much dabbled in the television space, but the pioneer, for real. The number one thing, you know, and it's really short and simple, is you just have to be passionate and be serious about your craft, because you're delivering content to an audience, and the only way they're going to pay attention to you is if they believe it. So you have to really, really take that energy and create it, like Sha says, in a unique way, in a professional way, you know, and introduce it to a world. You know, a lot of things have changed nowadays. You're seeing, we're talking about transitions. It's like, it's not about stuff being on television anymore. Online is the new television. So, you know, and that actually opens up even more, you know, because now, when you're delivering, back in the days, you're delivering content to TV, TV don't talk back to you. You can deliver content to the web now and engage with the audience and get feedback. So that's like a real tool. Like, I would honestly say that you should target digital first, and then let television follow behind you. That's probably the best way to go about it.
And one thing to that point before I answer, I think, you know, we talked about it going back to the new artists. Cable should be like your major label. You know what I'm saying? Like, artists nowadays, like a Mac Miller, will come up, build a fan base, so that when they get that major label look, they take it. They already have the fan base and everything they need to have, and they just carry that over. It's not like they're waiting on the major to provide that platform for them to build an audience. It's like you've already built it, and now you're getting the major look that you need. Now you have the machine behind you to just keep your natural movement going forward. You know what I'm saying? But the one piece of advice I would say off of that is just trust your instincts. I think that's the biggest thing that just translates, whether you're creative, whether you have a blog or whatever. I think when you'll run into people, you'll run into situations that clash with your instincts a lot, or what you really believe about your craft or your ability or the culture or music or whatever. And I think as long as you stay true to that and you trust that and you work towards that and you believe in it, even when you fall, you'll realize what you have to adjust or change in your perspective or what you need to challenge in yourself to get better. And then 9 times out of 10 though, if you're passionate and you trust your instincts and you live what you're creating for, your instincts are right. You'll just run into people who don't have the same look as you or like don't see things the same way as you. And then when you prove to them through the outcome why your instincts were correct, now you've made them believers and you've taught them something, and like that happens all the time. So I would say really just trust your instincts, trust what you know, and trust who you are. I think that's the best piece of advice I can give them.
I think also too, just identifying what's not in the marketplace. Like Shah mentioned it, but it's like when I started, there was the Source by the XXL, and then all hip hop started, and now there's so many different outlets and places you can contribute to. But there's an advantage in that as an audience, as a reader, you have all these choices. But as somebody who's creating content, it just creates so much competition and it's so muddled, and you're screaming to try and identify a different voice. And I think too many people either start a site or start some content creation process and they mimic something that's already out there. And if I go to Maurice's site every day and there's something I really like about his site and somebody else tries to do the same thing, I'm just going to go to Maurice's site because I trust him, I know his work, and out of habit that's where I go because now I'm a reader of his. For people who are online, there was a debate, I guess it was early this year, with the Pitchfork writers thing. That was this year, right? And so Pitchfork is this music site, and whenever a hip hop album comes out, they rate it, and people tend to take so much stock in their ratings. Like labels will say, Pitchfork gave Kanye's album an 8 or a 9, and artists say that same way. So there's this fight with people who are, natively a part of the culture saying, why do we care what Pitchfork is saying? It's a bunch of these dudes who are outside of the culture. And my thing is, if there was a young dude who wanted to start a site today, he should do a site that's nothing but hip hop reviews and build that out and become the new voice, because nobody's paying attention to XXL's reviews anymore. Nobody's paying attention to Vibe's reviews. Nobody's paying attention to the Source's reviews. And this is something who's worked at those places. And it's just, when I worked at XXL, nobody cared about the reviews. And I'm there caring about it as my job, but I know it's going to have very little impact because people are caring about what Pitchfork does. And but that's an example of that's something new. There's no young POV spot that just does nothing but album reviews. So it's identify what's missing, whether it's demographically, whether it's by gender, whether it's just by something topically that's not being covered, and just go out and do that. There's so many examples of that. Julia Beverly with Ozone magazine, nothing was being covered in that niche. She did that. She was successful. Now with Revolt, this idea of multi-tiered. What's the slogan you guys know? Multi-tiered. Multi-platform cable network. There's nothing that's like that, and that's why everybody's so excited about seeing what's going to happen. So I think in terms of the best advice that I can give for my career is find a need that's not being taken care of and fill it.
I think mine is kind of a two-part thing. One of the best things that I've learned is form relationships, form great relationships with the artists, form relationships with their managers, form relationships with their PRs, form relationships with whoever's doing a promotion at the venue that they're performing in. And when they give you an opportunity, do the best that you can so they'll remember you. If you do a video for J. Cole at a show in California, make sure it's the best video you've ever done. So when he's back in Cali, or if he has any other artists that are out there, you want to build and form relationships with artists, and then also attack your market. If you're I'm from Philly and whatnot, I've been in Atlanta for 3 years, but before I came down here, we pretty much had Philly on Smash and whatnot. Attack your market, get known in your market before you branch out and go other places.
I think the best thing, and this can be applied to anything, the best thing you can always know is that you know nothing at all. Always seek knowledge. It's fun. Anybody from a bum to a CEO.
Nashville. Because it's you, I'm asking. You have your camera, you're a TV exec, you're all of these wonderful things. I'm sure your arm's tired by now. And I'm looking at this guy, and he has his camera. He got the shoulder joint. He's I don't know what you're doing here, but I do know you came prepared. That's what I do know. He figured that he's gonna be shooting somebody for a long time, and so he came prepared. So I think the best thing that I can say is, come prepared. Come prepared.
I have 4 other people.
This is nothing to do with this. You're missing the entire point. You're missing the entire point. My point is, the best advice I can give is come prepared. That's all I have. Come prepared. No matter what's happening. And if you come prepared, what that means is you understand. What that means is you understand what is everybody else working with. What is the standard in your industry? Like you have to do everything. Like if everybody is wearing, if everybody's in Givenchy and whatever else, and you want to be the artist and you're chilling in Kmart tennis shoes and you're in hip hop, that's not going to work for you. I can tell you that. And it's not me being a diss, or I'm just saying come prepared, be successful in doing that. I'm not taking shots, I'm just being real. Dad, don't tweet me on that, guys, I'm sorry.
Question?
Well, hold on. We're actually going to open up we actually have, this is the last topic we want to throw out. We actually want to get you guys' take on this as well. And then we can open up the floor for the rest of the questions. But one of the last things we wanted to address is obviously within new media, it's also ushered in different aspects of the culture. And, we've sat around, I actually just got done completing like the mission statement for the company. And one of the things that, two of our main topics of focus was alternative and urban. And one of the things that what I was saying and Julian himself was, urban is different nowadays today. It means something completely different as opposed to when like MTV launched like 20 years ago. Urban isn't necessarily black, but it's black influence. Alternative isn't necessarily, what is it? What you say?
It was alternative lifestyle.
Right, it's an alternative lifestyle. So, I just wanted to get you guys' take and then, everyone else's take as well on, what does urban mean to you nowadays in the new media space, and what does alternative mean to you in the new media space, which is good.
Put that line. I think to his point, I think now, like the traditional ways of thinking have shifted because to your point about the culture is just shifted and transformed so much. I think with something like hip hop becoming this global culture in itself, I think that kind of created the platform for now. That's the through line of all cultures, right? Like through all the genres, you can see somebody like Jay-Z who can be at the top of hip hop, but his whole aura and his representation of the culture can cross like any platform, any genre, from pop, rock, whatever. Like it's that cultural credibility. But I think the point of that to something like urban, versus alternative is that, now urban can be the kid who listens to hip hop, but he also has other tastes because of his access. So he also listens to rock, pop. He may have just taste in EDM, trap music. So it also translates into his style, into his interests, because music affects your lifestyle. It's not just stuff that you listen to. So now that kid is skateboarding, but he goes to the certain clubs. He rocks his hair a certain type of way. He may have a certain type of tat. His whole look nowadays with this culture is a series of influences. Like you used to be able to look at a kid, a millennial, right? Oh, that's the catchphrase, right? So look at a kid and you could say, oh, yo, that kid looks hip hop. Yo, that kid looks alternative. Yo, that kid looks like a pop culture kid. You know what I'm saying? Nowadays, you can't really tell the difference because kids are influenced by so much. And I think that's a testament to, you can't deny the power of hip hop, right? So it's telling you how to dress, it's telling you how to get fly, it's telling you what the fly kicks, the hype beats, it's all of that. But at the same time, it's turning urban into more of a multicultural, is the mainstream type of representation of young people and of what's happening. And I think alternative used to be considered just straight rock and roll. It used to be like, yo, that's Nirvana, that's like, you know what I'm saying? You look now, alternative like a Rage Against the Machine, like a Linkin Park. But then you see like a Yeezus drop or like these different types of things that happen, and you see that alternative is really just choosing the alternative, like looking at the alternative lifestyle, being against the mainstream, and that's not necessarily white, and that's not necessarily rock. That's just saying like, I'm alternative to what's popping to people right now, and that's the same in lifestyle. I don't want to rock the leather pants, I don't want to rock the Pyrex joint, I'm gonna rock my nice little white tee with my sneakers or whatever, and that to you, with what you listen to and your taste, can be an alternative to you, and that's alternative. It's more about the mental state and the lifestyle than the traditional way of looking at the music or what race you are. Like we say, credibility comes from knowing the culture, not the color. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's more of the approach that we take to urban versus alternative.
Yeah, I mean, you know, just to add on to it, it's definitely going back to social media and everything. I think, you know, the influence is heavy. You know, you look at the influence that I say it though, that the black people are having on the world today is bigger than ever. Like, shoot, Instagram hashtag my nigga, you ain't gonna see no black people on there. You know what I'm saying? A lot of Asian people, a lot of white people using that hashtag now, and not even being racist. Like, it's embracing the name. Like, KRS-One said that years ago. Now we got white people calling themselves a nigga, and it has come to fruition. Seriously. So, I mean, you know, that's just the influence on hip-hop. I think a lot of people that's at the forefront of hip-hop right now, we grew up at the MTV age. We were babies and we were young when you used to be able to turn on radio and you would hear Madonna and New Edition and, you know, some of those other people, and it didn't have genre breaking. You know, they were all played on one radio station. MTV used to play Michael Jackson and George Michael and some of these other people, Run DMC, all in 1 hour rotation. So I think you're seeing the people that grew up in that generation are just spreading their influences to the younger people right now. So now you can't even tell where people are from. Like, you used to be able to tell, like, oh, he's from Cali or he's from, well, New York, we still rocking our Timbs regardless. Like that ain't never gonna change. We still gonna be our Timbs. That'll give it away a little bit, but I've been seeing a lot of people in ATL rocking Timbs now, for real. But, you know, I think it's really no genres right now. It's really no urban, like, it's really no alternative. Everything is the same because I think people are figuring out that we don't wake up and feel the same way every day. Sometimes I might wake up and I want to play the Future shit song. Some days I might want to wake up and I want to play New Edition. It's different. So I think now us as influencers, us as artists, us as DJs, just our tastes have permeated to the fans, and, you know, the fans' tastes are actually coming back full circle to us too.
If you know Shaheem, he wakes up every day wanting to listen to New Edition.
Or Bobby Brown.
Or Bobby Brown, yeah. No, I think urban's it's just an interesting label to use. Like, I could use it in here and feel comfortable because I know you'll get the interpretation that I mean when I say it. You know, there's certain meetings that I go to sometimes, and I don't like using that word because it'll be synonymous with just a limited view, and it's like, you know, it's just like with hip hop, right? Anybody who covers hip hop, the last thing they want to do is go into certain meetings and people think like, oh, you only know hip hop because that is another opportunity where, you know, you could do something about Breaking Bad, but you only do hip hop, and you know, sometimes that urban necessarily has that tag, and it is something that's changed, but it's still also changing. I don't think it's changed completely, but I do think that sort of our POV is, you know, they said it right, the Revolt guys, because I think they're in these mission statement meetings all the time. But it's knowing the culture, but not necessarily being limited to it, and it paints your point of view. And you know, for myself, there's a bunch of things that I'm interested in, whether it's music or sports or things of culture. But I always wear hip hop as my badge, probably. And that's my point of view. You know, listening to lyrics makes me go back and find things in history, and it traces back from listening to a big song, and next you know, I'm reading up on something else, and that's kind of the way I've always existed. And I think that, you know, for anybody who's from New York, and what was it David Dinkins quote, Reggie? The beautiful mosaic, right? And if David Dinkins, I asked Reggie because he would know. It's a former mayor of New York, David Dinkins, and when he was running for mayor a long time ago, he said New York is a beautiful mosaic of people and cultures coming together, and I think that's very synonymous with hip hop. And when people intend for this notion of urban, it's this beautiful mosaic that, like Shad said, and Julian, like you like hip hop, trap, you want to skate, and it's all that. And you know, if you're a part of it and you know the code, you can speak it comfortable, and I can show up here with a skateboard, and I'm no less hip hop than somebody who is wearing the Pirates vision. And you know, I think that we identify with that, and it's our job to continue to translate that to the larger world that's looking in at what we're doing. I
think these gentlemen already made some very interesting points. I know for myself personally, I've never seen urban or alternative in any color form. I think hip hop in itself, you know, is a great mixture of alternative and urban musics and different cultures and whatnot. Hip hop came, you know, when hip hop was started, it was about sampling and whatnot. And to this day, some of your biggest producers are still known for sampling. Like, we might think that they're original tracks, but it's because they came out 30, 40 years ago. It's like your favorite producers nowadays are still sampling tracks. So I kind of think, you know, as far as the urban and the alternative titles are concerned, we're lost in that translation now. Hip hop itself has become so big that it's more just of a hip hop term. It's not even a, you know, alternative or urban look to it. It doesn't have a certain appeal. It's colorless, it's odorless, it's genderless, it's its own being in itself.
I come from a slightly different perspective than the rest of these cats because I work more so in the lifestyle realm than in music. So I am the alternative. When I go into a tech situation, a gaming situation, 9 times out of 10, a fashion situation, or an automobile situation, like, I'm the alternative. Who I'm writing for is the alternative. So for me, it's all blurred because from my perspective, I look at things more through, I think differently, so I look through other people's eyes. And I see certain people think this is urban, but what's alternative to them is not an alternative for others. It's just what you like and what you don't like, what resonates with you and how you get down. So I think Sha made an excellent point, like, it really does not exist anymore.
I love that you said blurred lines because it's timely. You know, my background, I spent a lot of my time in white suburbs, being a corporate ladder brat, and didn't get a lot of hip hop. Like, I wasn't, you know, in the streets of Harlem, like, tagging or anything. You know, I didn't get all that in. I wasn't keeping it real. But I say that to say, you know, but when I got alternative first, I got R&B and soul, then I got alternative, and then I got hip hop. You know, there was a point where when I was at Violator, I was like, I really hope 50 doesn't ask me what my favorite song of his is. I just thought, like, oh my god. But, like, I think that when it comes to what is urban, when you're talking about music and when you're talking about lifestyle, it's one of those things where, you know, labels and people had to make the lines because we as people need to compartmentalize. We need to figure out, well, what am I going to use this for? What is its role in my life? You know, and when we're talking about urban, you have to think about everything. Everything is urban, and you know, Sean, the guy's down there, he didn't say, you know, black people are really, you know, leading what's cool. He didn't pick that off the sky. There's data. There's a lot of things that correlate to that statement. What we buy, we have the highest purchasing power. We're the most, we over-index on social. Like, this is what it is. So when anybody comes into the culture and is participating in this culture, it's a blurred line, you know. And I think that urban is anything and everything we want it to be. There is, if we want to put, you know, roaring guitar licks in a Jay-Z song, urban. If we want to, you know, get featured on something that is a Hall & Oates song, urban. Like, anything that we want to do is going to be urban. So I think that it does exist in terms of marketing and segmenting, but I think it also is just one of those things that, you know, what do we say? It's like gluten. It just is. You don't know what it's there for. You know, it doesn't have a real meaning, but it's like gluten. You know.
And the last thing I want to add into it before we open up the floor is definitely to you guys who are involved in the media. You know, if you're an aspiring artist, you know, if you write, you know, whatever the case may be, don't let these people, when I say people, I mean folks such as advertisers, influence you to tell you what our culture is. Like, yes. We run this culture, we live this culture. You know, they can't tell us what's urban, what's alternative, whatever the case may be. Like, we set that pace, and we're in a position now more than ever because of tools like new media, but we can make them. We have to make them better. They have to come our way now. Like we run the game. So absolutely, do not lay down at all. And always live by that message like every single day. It's important because we're the ones that keeps this culture moving forward for the next generation. But
they're gonna try to steal it from
they
us.
will. They definitely will.
As soon as they see 1 ounce a day, like they're gonna try to take it.
So we want to open up the floor, see if any of you guys have any couple